This video will examine the basic purpose and use of layers in AutoCAD. Layers are the primary method for organizing objects in a drawing by function or purpose. Layers are essentially like a set of transparencies or overlays used on a visual projector. You can organize your drawing by assigning objects to layers. Layers can reduce the visual complexity of a drawing and improve display performance by hiding information that you don't need to see at the moment. Before you start a drawing, you should create a set of layers that are useful to your work. In a house plan, you might create layers for the foundation, floor plan, doors, fixtures, electrical, and so on. With layers, you can associate objects by their function or location, display or hide all related objects in a single operation, and enforce line type, color, and other property standards for each layer. Let's look at an example drawing with layers. This drawing is the floor plan sample that comes with AutoCAD. I'll use this one to show you how layers work. I'll begin by zooming up onto a certain part of the drawing up here in the top corner. You can see in this area that we have many different layers associated here. We have a layer that's going to be for the chairs, a layer for the computers, a layer for the desks, a layer for the text, and so on. To see all of the layers in the drawing, on the Home tab, Layers panel, go to the Layers Properties dialog box. This dialog box shows all of the layers that are in a drawing. If I wanted to make the chairs layer so that they were no longer visible, I could simply come over here and turn that layer off by clicking on the light bulb. When I click on the light bulb, you'll see that the light goes out on the icon and all of the chairs in the drawing disappeared. Likewise, I could do the same thing for the computers. If I go to the computer icon, the light bulb by the computer layer, and I click on it, you will see all of the computers disappeared from the desks. To restore those back so that you can see them again, you can turn them on and turn them on. Layers use colors just to help the drawings on the screen to have visual differentiation. If everything on the screen was the same color, it would be difficult to see and discern what layer it's on very easily. But through the use of colors, you can tell if something's on the correct layer just by looking at the color of it. It's important to resist the temptation to create everything on a single layer. Layers are the most important organizing feature available in AutoCAD drawings. In addition to the color, line type, and line weight, there are several states that a layer can be in. Beginning with the first button on the left here, we have off and on. You have noticed that already that if I click on the off button, the chairs go away, and if I click on the on button, the chairs come back. Alternatively, there is another button right next to it that right now looks like a little sunshine, and you'll see that it says freeze. If I click on the sunshine, it turns to a snowflake, and again, the chairs disappear. This is different because when you turn a layer on or off, the information that is on a layer that is turned off is still retained in memory. But if you freeze a layer, the information on that layer is freed up from memory. So this will speed up pan, zoom, and many other operations. It'll improve object selection and performance, and it'll also reduce regeneration time for complex drawings. AutoCAD does not display, plot, hide, render, or regenerate objects on frozen layers. You can freeze the layers you want to be invisible for long periods. When you thaw the frozen layer, AutoCAD regenerates and displays the objects on that layer. If you plan to switch between visible and invisible states frequently, you can use the on-off section or setting. Be careful that you do not turn off a layer and then set that layer as current, because you can still draw on a layer that is turned off, but you cannot draw on a layer that is frozen. The next icon over is lock. Any layer that is locked will prevent you from modifying anything on that layer. Notice that if I hover over a chair that is on the locked chairs layer, it gives me the little lock icon right next to the crosshairs. If I try to erase that object, it'll filter it out and tell me on the command line that it was on a locked layer. To restore that layer to the unlocked state, you simply click on the icon again. It's important to note that you can draw on a locked layer. So this layer is locked, but I can draw a new circle on that layer. If I start off by setting this layer current, I can double click here and it sets that layer current. Notice the green check mark. Now when I come out to the drawing screen, I can draw a new circle. As soon as I draw that circle, notice that the intensity of it fades away because it's a locked layer. And if I try to erase that circle, come over here and choose it, it will filter it out so that I cannot erase it. However, if I unlock that layer, I can now come in and erase that circle that I just drew. The color of the layer is determined right here in this middle area. If I want to change the color of a layer, you simply click on where the color is. It takes you to the color palette and you can change the color to whatever color you want. In this case, I'll choose color number 41, choose OK. Notice that all of the layer or all of the objects on that layer were changed. If I want to change it back, I can simply come back down here, choose cyan, choose OK, and all of those chairs change back to the previous layer. If I want to change the line type of a layer, I can do that as well right here under the line type area. Begin by clicking on the word continuous, and it will bring up a list of line types that are loaded into AutoCAD. At this point, there are only 3 types loaded into AutoCAD. There's continuous, center, and hidden. If I want to change the line type of the chairs layer to hidden, I'll simply choose it there, choose OK, and you'll notice now that it says hidden. Nothing changed here directly, but until you zoom in and you see now that the line type of that chair has been changed from continuous to hidden. To change it back to continuous, you would simply click here on hidden, choose the layer or the line type that you want. When I choose OK, notice that it changes back here. Now there are more than just those types of line types in AutoCAD. If you need a different line type, say a phantom line for example, you'll see that phantom does not exist here on the layers, the loaded line types list. So you go to load and scroll down through the list until you find the line type that you want. In this case, I will choose the phantom line type, choose OK. Now that has loaded it into the loaded line types. You select it one more time here, choose OK, so that it will apply it to the objects that are on that layer. And it applies it to every object on that layer, not just the one that's in your screen at this time. So again, to change that back to continuous, I would click on phantom, change it back to continuous, and choose OK. You can change the line weight of an object in the drawing. Line weights are generally not displayed in the AutoCAD window, but you can display them. Right now this has a default line weight, which is a very thin line, but if I wanted to change it, you just click on the word default. It brings up a list of line weights. I can come down here and change it, say to 0.5, and choose OK. Note that this is an arbitrary thickness. It's not really going to be that thick when you print it on your screen. It's just printed on a piece of paper. It's just that big so that you can tell how thick it is on the screen. When I choose OK here, notice that it applied the line weight here, and it has also applied the line weight here. Most people do not like to draw with line weights turned on, so on your status bar you can locate the show hide line weight display and turn that off so that it's not on anymore. Again, to change that back to default, if that's what you wish to do, simply click on the line weight here and set it back to default and choose OK. The last area that we're going to talk about on the Layer Properties Manager is this one right here, where it is plot versus no plot. This controls whether the selected layers are plotted. if you turn off the plotting for a layer, the objects on that layer are still displayed, but turning off plotting for a layer affects only visible layers in the drawing. Any layer that is clicked and turned off will not plot in a plotted view. If a layer is set to plot but is currently frozen or off in the drawing, AutoCAD does not plot that layer. Turning off plotting for layers containing reference information, such as construction lines, can be useful. Now let's look at creating layers in a new blank drawing. Close this drawing and switch over to a new blank drawing. To create a new layer, go to the Layer Properties dialog box. You'll notice that there is no layers in this drawing except for Layer 0. Layer 0 comes stock with AutoCAD. Cannot be renamed or deleted. It must exist in all drawings. To create a new layer, simply click on the New Layer button. It'll begin by giving you the option of renaming the layers. You'll want to use the naming conventions for your class or for the company that you work with. In this case, I'll call this one Visible. And I'll create one more just for the sake of creating one, and I will call it Hidden. We already know what On, Freeze, Lock, and Color do. Let's change the color of that hidden layer to cyan. Choose OK. Now I need to change the line type of the hidden layer. The visible layer can have continuous line types, but hidden lines should have not a continuous line type, but a hidden line. Notice that hidden is not available in this list, so I'll choose Load. Scroll down until I find Hidden 2, which is appropriate for the small mechanical drawings in this class. Choose OK. That loads it into the loaded line types. I have to select it one more time, choose OK here. Notice now that it has applied that line type. And then finally, I will change the line weight of that visible layer to something thick, like say 0.5. At this point, the current layer is layer 0. If I decide that I need to work on a different layer, you can either double click here to select the layer, or you can select the layer once and then click here to change the layer. Additionally, after you've closed the Layer Properties Manager, you can change the layer by using this drop-down box to choose your layer here. So if I draw, for example, a rectangle on the visible layer, it's white and visible. If I turn my line weights on, you'll see that it's a nice thick line. If I switch, however, to the hidden layer, I come in and I draw a line, say from midpoint there to midpoint there. Notice that it is a hidden line type, and if I turn my line weights on again, it is still a thin line. Now, if I accidentally draw a line on the wrong layer, you can change it. Simply select the line that is on the incorrect layer, go to the drop down on the Layers panel, and choose the layer that you want it to be on. Remember, always use layers. Layers are the most important tool in organizing your drawings.